Welcome to a brand new episode of Johnson's Court. Today I am super excited to bring on 3 special guests. Some of you can call them my co-workers, my best friends. They also have names. First, we'll introduce Nick here, our driver of the car podcast. Want to give us a little introduction of yourself?
Yes.
Put him on the spot here.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on here. Great privilege to be on Johnson's Court for the first time, and just looking forward to getting rolling. Absolutely.
We've got Dan back there. Give us a little introduction about yourself.
I'm Dan the man, right over here. Thanks for having me on. I was a teacher for 7 years, and now I'm working with the soccer tournaments, so I'm excited to be here and excited to be a part of the podcast.
Great. We love to hear. And last but not least, we've got Dylan.
You didn't ask me for an intro of myself.
Well, that was...
All right, well, I'm Dylan. I'm the newbie of the group.
Yep, we can tell.
Just recently graduated from college and looking forward to getting started with my life.
All right, love it. Well, thank you all for your introductions here. Let me go ahead and put that back down so this guy can see where we're going on the maps. On our way on a road trip right now. I'm not going to give away too many details, but on a road trip. So we're going to start off here. We're going to have 4 or 5 different categories. We all came up with one, so super excited to get into all of them. Our first one we're going to talk about is the NBA free agents. Now, the NBA free agency has started. It's still kind of going on, you know, but really the big name players have signed. So we'll just go down the list here, and then we're going to give our best prediction of who we thought was the best free agency signing so far of the summer. So to start off, we have Fred VanVleet going to the Rockets on a 3-year, $130 million deal. You've got Gabe Vincent to the Lakers for a 3-year, $33 million deal. Bruce Brown to the Pacers, 2 years, $45 million. Austin Reeves signing back to the Lakers for a 4-year, $56 million. Jeremiah Grant back to the Blazers, 5 years, $160 million. That's a big deal, folks. Kyrie Irving back to the Mavericks, 3 years, $126 million. Anthony Edwards, yeah, it's a 5-year rookie max contract extension, so not really free agency. But you know, they couldn't have signed him if they didn't want to. But they believe in Anthony Edwards. Russell Wilson signing a $8 million 1-year deal, pretty low. We might get into that. Draymond Green signing a 4-year deal for $100 million. So they are bringing him back. Then Kyle Kuzma is going 4 years, $102 million, you know, staying on the Wizards. Chris Porzingis, it's hard to say his first name.
Kristaps.
2 years, $60 million. It was kind of a trade with the Wizards. Marcus Smart was traded to the Grizzlies. Not sure his money-wise contract, but he went to the Grizzlies. And then D'Lo, a 2-year, $36 million with the Lakers. And then last but not least, Grant Williams to the Mavericks, 4-year deal for $53 million. So we'll go ahead and start with Dylan back there. Dylan, who do you think signed the best free agent this offseason to their team? It's going to help them potentially make it to the NBA Finals this year.
So I'd have to say I don't think right away this team will make it or anywhere close, but I think the Rockets signing Fred VanVleet.
Oh, good take.
As many know, he was a undrafted free agent, so you gotta love seeing someone like that secure the bag, and I think he'll be good for a typically rather younger team in terms of leadership and building and coaching them up for the next couple seasons, and it'll be interesting to follow.
Absolutely, I love that. Thought it was kind of weird they signed him, but you know, they gotta have a sense of leadership and, you know, start to build that young core. What about you, Dan? You were on the clock next.
I would say it's a tough choice. I mean, there's a lot of good free signings out there, but definitely, I mean, the Golden State Warriors signing, you know, Draymond Green, keeping him back, you know, defensive anchor to the team to pair with Steph. I think that's probably solid to keep them in the playoff race and even championship contention. So that's probably my go-to. Along with second, I would say Dallas getting Kyrie back, and then I like Boston Celtics getting Kristaps Porzingis. Those are my top 3.
Well, we were doing top 1, but hey, we love your top 3 here. What about you, Nick? Driver, what do you think? Are you gonna be one of these other people, or are you going your own route here?
You know, in typical fashion, I'm going to veer off from the question here a little bit. I think the most important signing of this year was actually Kyrie Irving back to Dallas.
Ooh.
They absolutely had to sign him back. I mean, for all the quality pieces that they gave up for him, Mark Cuban and the GM there, brain fart in the name for Dallas there, but they absolutely needed to sign him back because they had no other option really going forward into next year had they not retained him back. For all the pieces just mentioned that they gave up for him, to really keep that fan base happy, I think that was one of the most important re-signings of the year. But to go to stay on topic with your actual question here, I think Dylan was looking at my notes here. Fred VanVleet to Houston was probably the best signing. Houston, as a young team, they needed that veteran presence in the locker room. Fred, over the last 3-4 years, has really come into his own as a starter guard in this league. Really, I think, underappreciated up there in Toronto. His game has really grown and blossomed. I think he'll be a welcome addition to that Houston squad who has a lot of young, great pieces. I think they're a ways away in agreement as well. But I think adding him, and they also signed Dylan Brooks as well. I think they could be a really surprising competitive team. They've kind of been, bottom dwellers the past three years here or so. So I say Fred VanVleet to Houston.
Yeah, no, I really like Fred. He's definitely, a dog, a good player. He had some good years on the Raptors. He does have a ring, so he's not ringless. He definitely can bring that experience with him. If I had to pick one, there's definitely a lot on here. But I'm going to go with Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies, especially with Ja being suspended for the first, is it 25 games? Yes. That is a huge hit because, that could really hurt them if they make the playoffs, or if they'll, get a playoff spot, or if they'll have to play like in the bubble, or, yeah, those games where those are crucial, win or go home. So I think Marcus Smart will definitely bring that veteran experience, that present. He will definitely help them out a lot for sure. So I'm going Marcus Smart here, but I do like Porzingis, going to the Celtics. That definitely helps them kind of more form a big three with losing. Jeez, my guy. Whoa. Hey. People driving out here, just not being the best. We will move on now to the next segment, which is Nick's segment. What is it called? What are we discussing here, Nick?
So, this next topic is something that I'm kind of not exactly passionate about, but I think it needs to be talked about a little bit more. But you talk about, is it more important for these players to come in to worry about, is it all about the ring, or is it all about trying to secure the bag to get their money? And to me, I think it's a little bit of both. All 4 players getting sort of what they're worth, what their value is, but I think that value is a little bit skewed too. I think having that connection to a city, to a town, to a franchise is very, very important. It gets that city, that state behind them, gets them something to root for, gets them that consistent presence that they can stand, and it really grows that connection. And it really sort of goes to that small market, bigger market cities. The smaller market teams, the Detroits, the Indianas, the Memphises, the Portlands, they really have to stretch and put out all the stops to get these players, to get these free agents to sign, and it's really keyed in on drafting, to where if you're the New Yorks, the LAs, the Atlantas, it's kind of put them on the name of the city themselves. So, there is a lot that goes into the Dirks, the Kobe's, the Reggie Millers, that stayed with their franchises their whole years. You know, the Bill Russells of the world. You know, there's a lot to be said about those players who stayed loyal throughout their career. It wasn't like their careers were short. We're talking players that played over 15 years, you know, in this league for one franchise to stay with those teams. But at the end of the day, what are we playing for? You know, what do these players absolutely want? Is it to be considered a champion? Is it about their individual accomplishments and awards? You know, and I think it's a little bit both. I think you should want to strive for both. But it's harder for those small franchises to get after those things. You know, unless you're lucky into a LeBron, you know, who brought Cleveland their first championship. You know, unless you
very true.
Sorry,
I said yeah, very true.
Unless you can get into oh goodness, unless you're like, you know, New Orleans was able to get signed. You know, some of these small franchises don't always get the opportunity to draft these franchise-altering players, so it's a lot harder for them to sort of get to that mountaintop in the end.
So I guess I'll kind of ask this question to everybody, give our little response to it. If you were able to be in the NBA, would you be more about the money you're collecting, or would you be more about chasing the ring and taking less money? Just everyone give their short little response. Dylan, we'll start with you.
I think after being a Pacers fan my whole life and living in Indiana, I would probably go with chasing the bag, building around what you have and around the city. And I know it's hard. We've never seen that kind of money thrown around in our faces before, so it's a little bit harder to say, but I would go the route of staying where I start and building with the pieces I have and doing best with that.
All right, love that Kobe mentality right there. What about you, Dan?
I would say chasing the ring.
All right, Kevin Durant. Sorry, go ahead.
More so, yeah, kind of staying loyal to, you know, the team you get, like, you know, drafted by or, you know, traded to. Definitely just being a team player and, you know, working towards that goal, the championship goal, rather than money. Like, more so like being a team player, definitely for me.
Awesome. And Nick, just your little quick response here. Which one are you going? Which route are you taking?
I'm staying loyal.
Staying loyal.
I think, first of all, you're a pro. You made it to the NBA, and you know, I mean, if you're going to give me money, I mean, I'll offer as much as you can get. But you know, I would love to stay with the team as long as I can. And you know, right now the NBA world is going through what Damian Lillard is going through, where he stayed loyal for 11 years to Portland. He made it very clear to both the organization and the fan base, he wanted to stay there. He loved the city. He wanted to bring a championship to Portland, something they haven't seen since the late 70s. And, you know, it can be hard. It can be frustrating, especially when an organization decides that they want to go in a new route, but they want to keep you.
So Nick is staying loyal.
But I'm staying loyal. There's something to consistency with that, and you know, you can get all the individual stuff you want going to a different team, getting that ring, but you know, to be immortalized within a city, I think lasts just as long too.
All right, I love your guys' takes on that. My take, I would just say, I would be loyal to start out for, you know, maybe the first 7-8 years of my career. And then, you know, it kind of goes back to just like you said, Nick, that where you get in Damian Lillard's spot and you're like, I've done everything for this city. I just feel like, you know, there's just something missing. Like, we're just not getting it done. So I've done what I could for my city. I've done all that I could for my city. Now it's time to kind of put me first a little bit, you know, go get that ring. And, you know, I get 1 or 2, I get 0, whatever, but that would just be the path that I would take. So, good little segment there. Are you a ring chaser or are you a bag chaser? And do you want to leave more of a legacy on your franchise and organization that drafted you? Now we go on to our way too early finals predictions. I mean, this is just, that's okay. The Summer League is now over. The preseason hasn't started, but, you know, we got to get, you know, out here and just, you know, see Is it more, do we think our personal fan-based organizations are going to make it? Are we going to be realistic with these predictions, or how are they going to go? First, we've got to start with Dan. Who do you think can make it to the NBA Finals and secure it and bring home that Lombardi trophy?
So I would say I have my teams.
Not just kidding.
Top team from each division.
So what are we talking about?
I would say coming out of the West, it has to be Phoenix Suns.
You get one. You get one. Who's your
the championship? Like in the finals.
Who's your finals
each.
prediction?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Let me get to it. So Phoenix Suns will be coming out of the West with Bradley Beal. They gotta make it there. If not, then their team just needs to break up. And then coming out of the East, Boston Celtics with Kristaps Porzingis. Granted, they lost Marcus Smart, which was huge, but with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they should definitely find a way to make it to the finals coming out of the East. So with that being said, the Celtics or Suns, if that were to happen, I would say the Suns with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. You know, they got a solid team that could and should at least make the finals, if not win it. But they can also, you know, lose in, you know, early playoffs as well. So we will see what happens.
That is very true. No, that's a good take. You know, you've got two big market teams that potentially could make it all the way there. I'm not really too sure. You know, the Suns, you know, went out and got Bradley Beal. You know, they really believe that, you know, maybe he's the final missing piece to their team, and we will see what happens. And then the Celtics, you know, losing Marcus Smart but getting Porzingis, good pickup. What about you, Dylan? I mean, who do you got coming out of the East and West, and who do you have winning it?
Yeah, so I think it will definitely be tough to beat the Suns, but ultimately I think their lack of capable depth will be their downfall. And I think even with the loss of Bruce Brown, the Denver Nuggets will make it back to the finals. And I believe they replaced Bruce with Reggie Jackson. Is that correct?
Maybe, not too sure.
But so I think their starting five is the best in the NBA. Got a couple solid pieces coming off the bench, and so I think they'll be there representing the West. And I think Giannis is going to go on a tear this year with a healthy Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday back, Brook Lopez is back, and I think the Milwaukee Bucks will be representing the East. With if I had to make a prediction, I would say Bucks in 7.
All right, I love that. We got Suns for one person coming out for Dan, and they're coming out of the West, and then Dylan's got the Bucks coming out of the East. What about you, Nick? Are you going to follow a trend here, the Bucks or the Suns, or are you picking two different teams to come into the NBA Finals?
Well, first of all, what an upcoming season that we have upon us here with the NBA. I mean, all these different storylines going on. I think this is going to be one of the most anticipated and exciting NBA seasons that we've had here. So many star movement here in the offseason here, via trades, via signing here, with the new players coming in the draft. We'll see what happens with San Antonio and Victor Wembanyama. But the start on the West side, again, I mean, they've got just so much star power there across so many teams. You know, each game, you know, it could be a matinee type of game here with all these stars and all these different teams here. But with that being said, it's hard to really dethrone the Nuggets. But they lost Bruce Brown in the offseason. They didn't really replace him. I mean, Justin Holiday might have been their biggest signing, and they didn't really do it. And I think they're waiting on the emergence of Christian Brown. They might just be taking that route. But for me, I'm gonna go with the Lakers coming out of the West.
Woo!
I think what they did in the offseason with all the moves that they're able to retain Rui Hachimura, to retain Austin Reeves, the people they were able to sign, those great deals they were able to get. Jackson Hayes is another under the radar that they got on a vet minimum contract from New Orleans. I think that's a great to give them that front court backup presence, as well as getting Gabe Vincent. You know, I understand that the finals wasn't the best showing, but up until that point, I mean, he was one of their leaders there in that Miami squad there the whole year. I'm not a real big fan of the D'Angelo Russell re-signing in the contract for him, but that just adds to their overall depth. So with that being said, I think they're one of the most deepest teams in the West. And I mean, having 2 of the top 10 players in the league doesn't help as well. It doesn't hurt as well, I'm sorry. With Anthony Davis and LeBron James leading the way. So I'd say the Lakers coming out of the West would be my pick. And again, you know, Dylan and I sort of on the same track here. I'm going with Milwaukee out of the East. I mean, they brought back Chris Middleton. They brought back Brooke Lopez. Drew Holiday is still there. And yes, how can you improve on being the #1 seed? Well, you can improve on not getting beat out of the first round. And I don't think that's going to happen again this year. I think they're one of our stacked teams, and you have the best player on the planet in Giannis to me. So I have Milwaukee versus Lakers in the finals. To me, I think that could be a 7-game series. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Giannis versus LeBron or Giannis versus AD in the finals? I think that would be highly, highly viewed. But I would have the Lakers coming out of that one and LeBron getting his 5th ring.
Wow. Hey, I like that actually. You know, I'm a big Anthony Davis fan, so if I could see AD get another ring, that'd be super cool. Maybe LeBron has one more ring in him before his son comes into the league. You know, the Lakers are definitely trying to, especially with everything that Nick described for the Lakers, you know. We'll see if that can get them over the hump.
Not to say that there aren't concerns with the Lakers. I mean, Anthony Davis is here one day and gone the next. LeBron's, you know, another year older. More things come with that. So it's not like they're not without their concerns, but I think their depth really is the biggest thing that's outstanding here, where not a lot can be on LeBron's shoulders, not a lot on Anthony Davis' shoulders. You might see more, it's not LeBron's MO, but you could see more load management this year coming from the Lakers, especially with LeBron here. But I just think all those key acquisitions, I think that help pushes them over the Denvers and the Phoenixes.
Absolutely love to hear that. So if I had to give my pick coming out of the East, it's hard not to want to pick the Bucks because yes, they did sign Chris Middleton. You know, Giannis played very well. You know, they really do have a lot of the same pieces that they've had over the past couple of years. So I'm gonna go with the Bucks here. I would go the 76ers, but James Harden is not happy. If James Harden was happy and still wanted to be there, I would potentially pick the 76ers. But I'm going with the Bucks coming out of the East. And if I had to pick a team coming out of the West, oh man, I had them potentially, I want to say maybe I had them winning last year, or I had them in the finals, but I'm going to put them back, and I'm going with the LA Clippers. I know Kawhi hasn't been healthy. I know Paul George hasn't been the healthiest, but I believe in Kawhi and I believe in Paul George if they stay healthy. They do have a good bench. I don't think they should have got rid of John Wall. I think that was a stupid move, but I really do think that they can come together and, you know, they want to bring a chip to, you know, to LA, not the Lakers, but to the Clippers. And so I would just love to see Paul George he doesn't have one ring, does he? So I'd love to see him get one. Kawhi could get another one. He's been there. He knows how to do it. So I'm going with the Clippers with my finals prediction. So we all have a different finals prediction, which is really cool. And we'll just see what happens. Like I said, this is the way, way too early finals predictions.
I had the Clippers too.
You had the Clippers too?
I was thinking about it. I had them winning it the last 2 years is my early prediction. But, you know, injuries. But I think this might be the year they finally get it right. They finally stay healthy.
Retaining Russell Westbrook, I think, was a smart move for them. Yeah. He did play well for them. You know, you can rely on him at the very least to be there. And he's a better fit on the Clippers than he was the Lakers.
Yes.
One thing to look out for, though, with the new rule of having to play 65 games in a season to qualify for awards, you could see these injury-prone players like PG and Kawhi trying to get to that number and potentially hurt themselves along the way and ruining their chances for the playoffs.
But I don't think you have to worry about Kawhi because he doesn't really care about how many games he plays as long as he makes the playoffs. But no, I definitely understand what you're saying there. That is a good rule, so we'll see what happens this year with that. But then our last little segment is kind of broken into 2 parts. What sleeper team will make the playoffs? Who do we got here? This was kind of more of Dylan's segment. We'll start with you, Dylan. What sleeper team do you have making the playoffs?
Just a little bit biased here, but I really like the Pacers off season. I don't think they're going to get in as top 6 get in without playing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, yes, I don't have them being top 6, but I think they will be the team that come out of play-in tournament. Potentially, I think they're really going to gel this year, start to figure out the direction they're going. They got a lot of good young depth, so I have the Pacers coming out as a team who did not make the playoffs last year.
Awesome. What about you, Dan? Good hometown pick right there.
Yeah, so I like that a lot. I'd say I hope so. I would go with that too. I'll pick a different team though. I mean, I think Dallas, you know, they fell out at the end of the season. They could have easily made the playoffs, but re-signing Kyrie Irving, and they have Luka. I'm not sure about their supporting cast, but I can see them at least, you know, sneaking in the playoffs this year with the talent of at least those two. So just keep it short and simple. I mean, like, I think they definitely have a chance.
Absolutely. No, I like that a lot. I was surprised they missed it last year, but with kind of things happening towards the end of the season, it kind of made sense. So bringing Kyrie back, though, you know, that does cause some drama. So we'll see what happens there. All right, Nick, what do you think, you know, what's that one team you think is going to get in? Are you going to go hometown Pacers as well with Dylan?
Am I limited to just one team?
Just one team, that's it.
Man, yeah, so all the people who know me know I'm a die-hard, as biased as can be. I love my Pacers. Everyone knows me. I love my Pacers so much. As Dylan said, their offseason was incredible. They're taking that next step. They want to be more. They were so competitive last year. Mm-hmm. They're taking that next step to be as competitive. I am going to veer off of the Pacers. Do I believe they'll be in playoffs? Yes, but to do a more that probably next year team who was very close and on the fringe of making it last year. They were in a playing tournament last year, but they're going to be solidly in the playoffs this year. Oklahoma City Thunder.
All right.
I think for the past few years, they have been up and coming, and the league is taking notice. I think this year they will be what Sacramento was last year. Now, granted, nobody saw Sacramento as good as they were last year coming into last year's season. I don't think people had them maybe a fringe playoff team last year, let alone they actually were the third seed in the West. And they were one of the most solid home and away teams last year. I think Oklahoma City Thunder is going to be what last year's Sacramento team was. I don't know if they'll be a third seed, but I think they'll definitely be top 7. I think with Chet Holmgren coming back from injury,
that's
the
huge.
Season, that's sort of that
Gotta
missing piece that they were sort of missing, is that sort of rim protector. That sort of big man in the middle. You know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what a last year he
was up there for MVP. Those numbers he was putting
absolutely.
up.
I mean, he has solidly made himself a top 10 player. He has helped carrying that also small market franchise. I mean, having Luke Dort there, having the 40 different Williams kids that they have on there.
That is true, yeah. Josh Giddey.
You want to talk about a team. Oklahoma City Thunder is a team. Not a lot of big name people. I mean, Alexander is starting to become a big name. Yeah. They have Josh Giddey. You know, Chet Holmgren coming back here. I think Oklahoma City Thunder is going to be that playoff team that wasn't there last year that is going to solidly be in there this year.
I like that pick a lot because I'm going to stay in the West. And this team's kind of been on it. Like, I think they've been in a bubble playoff game and they've lost. They are missing one key player, and I think everyone is going to know exactly when I say they're missing one key player. It's the New Orleans Pelicans. I've liked the Pelicans for a long time when AD was there, and then when they, you know, traded and got, you know, Brandon Ingram. He's a great player. I love CJ McCollum. Love they added him. You know, Zion, you know, if he can stay healthy and he can come back this year, I think they have a real shot of making the playoffs. Kind of, you know, in the same boat as OKC, maybe not top 3, but at least, you know, in the playoffs, I think they'll be, even if they exit first round, I just at least still think that they make the playoffs. I think they have a lot of potential, and I really think that they can get there. So that's our sleeper team who we think is going to make it into the playoffs. I'm writing them down so I remember. And then our final segment here, and this will be a fun one. So you get to pick 2 teams, one from the East, one from the West. What team that made it to the playoffs last year will not make it this year? So as amount of the good teams we had last year who made the playoffs, which deserve to be playoff teams, who do you think won't make it out of the East and won't make it out of the West? Nick, we'll go ahead and start with you on this one.
Yeah, it's really, I don't think they'll be as high of a seed as they were last year, but I also don't think they'll be playoffs. There's Brooklyn and Atlanta are sort of those two teams that I just think both are going to fall off to what they were last year. Brooklyn is definitely not going to be they were the 6th seed, I think, last year, fourth or 6th seed.
They stayed afloat after they traded everybody.
Yeah. They could make it, but I don't think they'll be as high, but I'm going to go with the Atlanta Hawks are going to get bumped out.
Wow.
And I think the Pacers are going to take their spot. Hopefully not as the 7th seed, hopefully higher. Yeah. But I think Atlanta's going to get bumped out. I mean, they had that great playing game versus Miami that kind of really sealed it for them. I don't see that happen again. I think they could be a play-in tournament team again, but I don't think they are making the playoffs from the East.
All right, now from the West. The West is always usually harder, so I know that kind of,
From the West. Yeah, so playoff teams last year, you had Memphis, you had Sacramento, you had Phoenix, you had Denver, you had the Clippers,
the Nuggets,
you had
Timberwolves,
you had Minnesota,
the Clippers, and the Kings, and the Lakers.
Grizzlies, Lakers, Warriors, Kings, Suns, Warriors, Timberwolves, Nuggets.
So who's coming out? You have OKC making it.
Yes, I do.
So who's coming out?
Man, that's so
kind of an easy.
The
pick.
West is very, very difficult here. It's so much competition there. I am going to take a big leap, but I am going to say Memphis is going to not make it. I think Memphis will be in that play-in tournament, but I'm going to have Memphis falling out and OKC going in. I'm sorry. You know what? As I'm speaking here, I think Memphis recovers from the 25 suspension game that John Morant is. I'm actually going to say Minnesota is going to drop out.
I was waiting for you to say Minnesota. That's probably the easiest pick to make.
Well, that's not to discredit Minnesota. I mean, Anthony Edwards is coming. He's coming. People want to give the face of the league after LeBron retires and Durant is getting up their age to John Morant. I think Anthony Edwards is coming for that title as face of the league. But I don't want to discredit Minnesota too much because they're competitive, they're hard. But I'm going to say they're going to drop out, and I'm going to give OKC that in there.
All right. It's hard because those teams when they playoffs last year, they made it for a reason, but sometimes they get booted. What do you think, Dan? As we're going to you.
Here we go. What I think out of the East, the Knicks. they have some talent, but I just don't see them like.
The Knicks, yeah, they did.
Yeah, they made it. They made it to the semifinals too. Surprisingly, I think they were either a 4 or 5 seed. So they're kind of hit or miss. They could either make playoffs or they could obviously, I think, probably get out, to a bad start of the season or finish not strong at all. So I just don't see them making the playoffs, or they could do a play-in and probably lose the play-in. They'll probably be like a 9-10 seed.
Yeah,
is my guess. I just don't see the talent on the Knicks. Out of the West, kind of the same boat as what Nick was saying in terms of Memphis. I'm surprised they were like a 2 seed, from this past year. They have talent with Ja, especially Jaren Jackson Jr., so I can see it, but obviously with Ja Morant missing some time, and then I just don't know if I can trust them. I think they have a good coach, but I can see them kind of same boat as like the Knicks, like in the East. Like Memphis could easily get a 9-10 seed, lose play-in game to make the playoffs. Those are probably my top 2.
I like that. I like that a lot. What about you, Dylan?
Yeah, so for the East, I have the Nets. I kind of view them as a team that will be similar to how the Pacers were first half of the season last year, where they come out of the gates, guns blazing, nothing really to lose. They got the rising star like Halliburton with McHale. You got the defensive big with Claxton, kind of like Turner was. And then you kind of have the new young guy, Cam Thomas, kind of like Benedict Mathurin. So that's who I don't really see him. I see him dropping out of the playoffs. Definitely could be a sneaky team to watch out for. But I just don't think they have enough for a full season to get the job done and make it to the playoffs. And then over in the West, I have the Timberwolves. This has just been a team year in and year out where they have hot starts, they have cold starts, and everything in between, and I don't think anything's going to change this year. A prediction I have is Cat will be traded at the trade deadline.
That's a big prediction. That's a hot take.
Many years in a row now, they have not gotten past the first round, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
They haven't been out of the first round since probably KG was there.
Yep. And I think it's this time you start building up draft assets and building around Anthony Edwards, who, like Nick said, is one of the new up-and-comers and trying to fight for that face of the league. And I just think it's time to kind of hit the not total reset, but kind of take a step back and regroup themselves. So that's who I have for the West.
Wow, hot take. Karl Anthony Towns. We'll see what happens to you this season. I'll go ahead and start in the East. You know, it would be between the Nets and the Knicks. Obviously, I'm going to go with the Nets. I don't think they will be back. I really thought they were going to fall off before the playoffs started. So with everything happened when the KD trade him and things like that, they stayed afloat and they were just able to make the playoffs. But I don't see them coming in there. Like I said, I see somebody else, you know, bouncing in there. I don't know. Let's see. The Hornets maybe. I don't know. The Pacers could, you know. You never know. But I just don't see the Nets coming in there. You know, just the way that Dylan described it, that's kind of what they sound like they're going to be this year. On the West, it's a little bit harder. I could go the route of the Timberwolves because it does kind of make sense. That is the easy choice. But I'll go ahead and make a hot take here. And I'm going to say the Golden State Warriors. The reason I'm going to say the Golden State Warriors is I don't see Chris Paul working out with the Warriors. I know he's a great ball handler. He's a very smart player. He is kind of injury prone when it comes closer to the playoffs. You know, that could have potentially lifted the Rockets over the Warriors that one year. I don't know. I just didn't think the Chris Paul signing was the best signing that they could have done. Yes, Curry's getting up there. I know you just signed Draymond Green to a 4-year deal, which is crucial to have him back on the team. I get it, but I don't know. There's something about the way that the West is and how hard it is and all these teams are coming up that I think the Warriors dynasty is at its end. And I think when they got a ring, was it 2 years ago they got a ring?
Correct.
Yes.
2 years. So I think that was their last ring that they'll get. If Curry gets another ring, it could be on the Warriors maybe a few years down the road. He could leave. I don't know. You know, with Klay Thompson, he's not the player that he used to be as well. So, you know, Jordan Poole's no longer there. I just think they're starting to, you know, they need to start building up the young guys a little bit more. And trading away Jordan Poole, I don't think was your answer. To that, I guess maybe just him and Draymond just didn't get along very well. So they said, see ya, Jordan Poole, we trust in Draymond Green more, which I guess makes sense from a GM standpoint and what they're trying to do with the organization. But like I said, I'm going the Warriors. That's a hot take, just like, you know, Dylan thinks the Towns could be traded to deadline. They're trying with that too big with Rudy, but I don't know. But that's it on our, you know, who's going to make it, who's not going to make it. But we'll wrap it up with closing remarks. Does anybody else have anything to say? Nick, I see you had your hand up. What is one last thing you want to say to our people out there?
Well, really, let's just do this segment I like to call quick takes here, so 30 seconds or less on our answers here. So the top 6 teams in this past year's NBA draft, so San Antonio, Charlotte, Portland, Houston, Detroit, Orlando.
Bottom feeders.
Which one of those 6 teams are going to go from worst to first? If you had to pick, which one do you think has the best shot? So 30 seconds or less. I'm going to start. I'm going to go back to Houston. I think, again, Fred VanVleet was a huge acquisition signing. They had the offensive firepower to score with the best of anyone. I think having that extra veteran leadership as well as getting a defensive presence and Dillon Brooks, even if it may be all mental with him, I think they've got the best shot of those 6 teams to go from worst to first. So don't sleep on Orlando.
Orlando? You mean the Rockets?
No, just don't sleep on Orlando.
Oh, okay.
I'll go next since it looks like Dan's researching, but that's kind of how Nick said. I had in mind the Orlando Magic. Last couple draft classes they've really struck gold, and they seem to be forming and gelling pretty good over time. A couple things they need to figure out, like what they're going to do with what's his name, Jonathan Isaac. Can he stay healthy? Is he going to be a part of their future?
Yeah.
If not, what are you going to get for him? And really figuring out which two of the three they're going to keep between Suggs, Cole, and Fultz. Trying to figure out
that is true. Yeah.
Trying to figure out their guard situation.
Guard play there.
I think if not the Rockets, this is definitely the only other team that really has the pieces right now to overtime eventually become one of the best teams in the NBA.
Love it. Love the take. What about you, Dan? What's your research telling you?
I was just making sure. I was like, all right, which are the bottom three teams from each division, the East and West, and I mean, I've kind of been a little bit curious and interested about the Charlotte Hornets. Definitely with their roster. I just wanted to just look at the roster. I know most of the players, but I'm like, all right, you got LaMelo Ball. They picked up Brandon Miller, from the draft, which was huge. Miles Bridges, nice, really good player right there. Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, Terry Rozier. Like, they have a good, solid team, and they have a team vitality. They don't really have like a superstar, but they can definitely kind of sneak into the playoffs as, even like a high seed or even like a 6, 7, 8 seed, and make it at least second, third round. I think they can kind of flip their standing, their record from last year, and definitely make it in.
Dan must have his seat warmers on because that's a very hot take.
And I just went to North Carolina on spring break, and nice area over there.
Well, hey, in closing remarks, if you like us, you want to see more of us, like this video, please hit that like button, please subscribe, hit that bell, and close us out here, Riley.
Absolutely. We'll get my take real quick. I think that I just had to pull up on my phone. Washington Wizards, signing Kyle Kuzma, maybe they'll start something, maybe not, who knows. But in the West, it has to be the Rockets. They just have the most potential besides OKC, but OKC is kind of a little bit there. They're more known. So, yeah, I would say the Rockets for sure. But that's it, guys. We are out. This road trip is done.